The night my parents threw me out, it wasn't just cold, it was a torrential California storm. I remember the exact sound of my designer heels splashing into the muddy puddles of their pristine suburban driveway. I remember the weight of the heavy, black industrial trash bags scraping against my knuckles, bags filled with my college degrees, my clothes, and my childhood photographs. My mother stood under the porch light, her arms crossed, looking at me as if I were a stray dog that had ruined her expensive rug. My father didn't even look me in the eye. He just reached out, grabbed the heavy brass doorknob, and slammed the solid oak door shut. The deadbolt clicked. That click echoed in my ears louder than the thunder above. They called me a financial parasite. They called me a failure because I had just lost my corporate job. What they completely failed to realize, in their blind arrogance, was that the petty internet hobby they had spent 3 years mocking was actually generating millions. They didn't know that while they were charging me predatory rent to live in their guest room, I was quietly buying up real estate. And that architectural masterpiece on the Malibu coast? The multi-million-dollar glass beach house my father had spent his entire life dreaming about, photographing, and praying to lease? I didn't just have a key to it. I owned the entire piece of land it sat on. This is the story of how my family traded their only daughter for a status symbol, and how I used that exact status symbol to dismantle their lives. Let's start from the beginning, Reddit. My name is Scarlett. I'm 24 years old, and until recently, I lived in an affluent suburb just outside of Los Angeles. My parents, Charles and Victoria, are the quintessential definition of nouveau riche wannabes. They don't actually have generational wealth, but they spend every waking second pretending they do. My dad runs a mid-sized boutique consulting firm that is constantly on the verge of bleeding cash, and my mother spends her days hosting charity galas, just so she can get her picture in the local town magazine. Then, there is the golden child, my older brother, Julian, 27M. If Julian walked on water, my parents would praise him for not getting his shoes wet. Julian is charming, tall, incredibly lazy, and has never worked a hard day in his life. But he accomplished the one thing my parents valued most. He married into real wealth. His wife, Audrey, is the youngest daughter of Harrison Vance, a legendary billionaire real estate mogul in Southern California. Because Julian managed to secure a ring on Audrey's finger, my parents treated him like a corporate deity. He drives a leased BMW paid for by my father, lives in a penthouse downtown sponsored by his father-in-law, and can do absolutely no wrong. And then there was me, the data analyst. I graduated from a top-tier university with a degree in data science and business analytics. I didn't want handouts. I took a corporate job at a massive logistics firm, pulling in a stable $85,000 a year. To any normal family, a 23-year-old making $85,000 right out of college is a massive success. But to Charles and Victoria, I was an embarrassment. At the dinner table, while Julian bragged about the private yacht parties he attended with his billionaire in-laws, my mother would look at me and sigh. "Scarlett, why can't you find a real man like Julian did? You're going to rot in a cubicle forever." When I graduated, my dad told me that free rides destroy character. He allowed me to move into the small guest room above their garage, but under one strict condition. I had to pay them $2,000 a month in rent, plus 30% of the household utility bills. I was young, naive, and wanted to please them, so I agreed. It took me a full year to realize that my $2,000 a month wasn't going toward utilities. I accidentally saw my dad's financial ledger on his desk. He was using my hard-earned corporate salary to fund Julian's country club membership, due so Julian could maintain appearances with his billionaire in-laws. I was literally a financial farm animal to them, being milked to support my brother's fake lifestyle. But I am a data scientist, Reddit. We don't just accept bad data, we optimize. The moment I realized my parents were exploiting me, a switch flipped inside my brain. I knew that if I confronted them, they would simply kick me out before I was financially ready, or find a way to manipulate me. So I played the part of the quiet, submissive, struggling daughter. But every single night, after my corporate shifts ended at 6 p.m., I would eat a quick dinner, endure my family's insults, and go up to my dark room above the garage. From 10 p.m. until 4 a.m., while the rest of the house was sleeping, I built my empire. I had developed a highly sophisticated proprietary software algorithm, an automated supply chain optimization tool that helps independent global e-commerce brands cut their shipping costs by up to 40%. I launched it as a private B2B SaaS, software as a service platform. The first month, I made $3,000. The third month, I made $15,000. By month 12, a massive tech conglomerate in Silicon Valley noticed my software. Instead of buying me out, they signed a licensing agreement to integrate my algorithm into their international shipping networks. Suddenly, my little internet hobby was clearing $140,000 to $160,000 a month in pure net profit. I was officially a multimillionaire at 24. But I didn't tell a single soul in my family. I didn't buy a flashy wardrobe. I didn't change my lifestyle. I kept driving my old, dented 2015 Honda Civic with the squeaky brakes. I wore plain hoodies and kept my head down. Why? Because I knew my parents' psychology perfectly. The absolute second Victoria and Charles found out I had millions in liquidity, they would have manufactured a fake family crisis. They would have claimed my dad's firm was going under, or that Julian needed a business loan, and they would have used weaponized guilt to drain my accounts. The only person who knew the truth was Ethan. Ethan, 25M, is an architect, and he is the love of my life. We met at a local coffee shop during my first year of college, long before I made a single penny. Ethan is brilliant, deeply grounded, and has a heart of absolute gold. He doesn't care about luxury brands or country clubs. He loved me when I was just a tired data analyst crying over spreadsheets. When my side business started blowing up, Ethan didn't get intimidated or greedy. He became my strategist. He helped me set up my LLCs, manage my tax structures through trusted legal channels, and kept me grounded when the numbers in my bank account started looking like phone numbers. We were building a future together, quietly, away from the toxic glare of my family. Then came the fateful Thursday in late October. The global economy was taking a massive hit, and the logistics corporation I worked for announced an emergency, company-wide downsizing event. They laid off 35% of the corporate staff in a single afternoon. Because my department was heavily automated, my position was eliminated. Even though I was independently wealthy from my software, getting fired hits your psychology hard. It makes you feel disposable. I drove home that evening feeling emotionally raw, wanting nothing more than a warm meal and a little bit of parental comfort. When I unlocked the front door of my parents' house, the atmosphere was festive. The dining table was covered in expensive catering from an upscale French restaurant. My parents, Julian, and his wife Audrey were all sitting around, drinking a $400 bottle of vintage champagne. My mother looked up, her eyes scanning my tired face and my wet raincoat. "Oh, Scarlett, pull up a chair. Julian just secured a massive partnership deal with Harrison Vance's firm." Well, technically Harrison gave Julian the position, but it's a massive win for our family name. We're celebrating. I sat down at the edge of the table, my hands trembling slightly. "That's great, Julian. Congratulations," I murmured. I looked at my dad. "Dad, Mom, actually, I have some bad news. My company went through a massive layoff today. My entire division was cut. I lost my job." The festive energy in the room evaporated instantly. The silence was suffocating. My mother slowly put her champagne flute down on the table, her expression instantly hardening into cold disgust. "You lost your job?" Victoria asked, her voice dangerously sharp. "Scarlett, are you incredibly incompetent? The first of the month is in exactly 3 days. Your $2,000 rent payment is wired automatically. Are you telling us you're going to default on your financial obligations to this household? I looked at her, completely stunned. Mom, I've been paying you guys consistently for 2 years. I just need a couple of weeks to readjust, file for severance, and look at my options. I'm your daughter. My dad stood up, slamming his hand on the table, making the crystal glasses rattle. No, Scarlett. You are an adult who is living under my roof. I told you from day one, we do not harbor freeloaders. Your brother Julian is building a legacy with the Vance family, and we cannot have a jobless, broke, lazy daughter staining our reputation. If you can't pay the rent on the first, you are a liability. Julian chimed in, taking a slow sip of his champagne, a smug, punchable smirk on his face. Yes, Scarlett. Honestly, it's about accountability. If Dad lets you slide, it sets a bad precedent. Audrey's family values discipline. We can't have your failure rubbing off on my corporate image. Audrey didn't say a word. She just looked at me with pitying, arrogant eyes. My blood ran completely cold. I looked at my parents, the people who brought me into this world, and I realized they didn't see a child. They saw a broken ATM machine. My dad pointed toward the stairs. I want you out of this house tonight, Scarlett. I'm not waiting for the first of the month for you to make excuses. Dad, it's midnight. It's literally pouring rain outside. I screamed, tears finally spilling over my eyes. My father walked into the kitchen, grabbed a roll of heavy-duty black trash bags, and marched up to my room. He started ripping my clothes off the hangers, shoving them into the bags, and tossing them down the stairs. My mother stood at the bottom, watching coldly. They dragged my bags out onto the concrete driveway, threw them into the rain, and pushed me out after them. The heavy front door slammed shut. The lock clicked. I stood there, soaked to the skin, shivering in the freezing wind, completely abandoned by my own blood. I sat in my old Honda Civic, the engine idling, the rain drumming furiously against the windshield. My hands were shaking so violently I could barely text. I called Ethan. The second he picked up and heard my ragged breathing, he didn't waste a breath. Scarlett, where are you? Tell me right now. They threw me out, Ethan. I choked out. They threw my clothes in the trash bags. I'm in the driveway. Stay right there. Lock your doors. I'm coming to get you. Exactly 9 minutes later, Ethan's heavy black truck tore into the neighborhood. He slammed on the brakes, leaped out into the pouring rain without a jacket, and ran straight to my car door. He pulled me out into a massive, crushing hug. He didn't care that my clothes were soaked or that I was covered in tears. He lifted me off the ground, kissing my forehead repeatedly. I got you. You're never going back to them. Let's go home. Now, here is the cosmic joke my parents didn't know. 4 weeks before this exact night, Ethan and I had finally closed the deal on a magnificent piece of real estate. For 5 years, my father had been completely obsessed with a specific, world-renowned residential masterpiece located right on the cliffs of Malibu. It was called the Zenith Horizon, a 6,500 square foot ultra-modern smart mansion made entirely of reinforced glass, matte black steel, and white infinity pools that cascaded directly into the Pacific Ocean. My dad had a framed picture of this exact house in his office. He used to say, "If I can ever lease this house for just one summer month, I will know I've made it to the top of society." The house had come onto the private market through an exclusive celebrity listing. Using the massive liquidity from my software company, I had purchased the entire property outright for $2.5 million in cash, with Ethan handling the structural and interior custom design. We were keeping it a secret until our formal engagement party, but my parents' cruelty forced our hand. That night, Ethan didn't drive me to a cheap, depressing motel. He drove me through the exclusive, heavily guarded gates of Malibu. We pulled up to the massive, glowing structure of the Zenith Horizon. Ethan carried me through the 12-foot glass pivot doors. The interior was stunning. Heated marble floors, a massive roaring fireplace, and the serene, therapeutic sound of the ocean waves crashing right beneath our private deck. He wrapped me in a plush designer robe, drew a hot bath filled with essential oils, and cooked me a gourmet midnight meal. As we lay in our king-size bed, looking out at the moonlit ocean, Ethan pulled me close, kissing my shoulder. "Let them think you have nothing, Scarlett," he whispered softly. "They threw away a diamond to keep a handful of gravel. Tomorrow we start the real work." For the next 3 solid months, I went completely ghost. I blocked my mother, my father, and my brother on every single platform. I changed my email addresses. With Ethan by my side, managing my mental peace, I poured 100% of my energy into my tech business. We expanded our enterprise tier, and my monthly revenue skyrocketed from $150,000 to over $300,000. I quietly traded in my old Honda Civic for a sleek, custom-ordered matte black Porsche Taycan, keeping it parked safely in our multi-car underground garage. I was living a life of absolute luxury, while my family still thought I was sleeping on a friend's couch eating instant ramen. 3 months later, I decided it was time to check the wreckage. I unblocked my mother's number. Within less than an hour, a text message popped up on my screen. There was no apology. "No, are you safe?" "No, do you have food?" The text read, "Scarlett, Julian's father-in-law, Harrison Vance, is hosting an incredibly important high society dinner this Sunday at an elite restaurant in Malibu. You are required to attend because Audrey's family is asking why you are completely missing from our recent family portraits, and it's looking highly suspicious. Dress appropriately, do not mention your embarrassing unemployment, and borrow some money for gas so you aren't late. Do not humiliate your brother." I stared at the screen, a slow, cold smile spreading across my face. I showed the text to Ethan. Ethan smirked, adjusting his cuffs. "Oh, we are absolutely going beautiful. And I think it's time we host the after party." On Sunday evening, I arrived at the high-end Malibu restaurant. I wore a stunning, backless emerald green designer gown, paired with a subtle but devastatingly expensive $45,000 vintage Rolex that Ethan had bought me to celebrate our latest corporate milestone. Ethan walked beside me, looking like an absolute high-fashion model in a beige, tailored Italian suit. When we walked into the private dining room, my family was already seated with Harrison Vance and his executives. My mother took one look at my dress and my appearance, and her eyes flashed with a mix of jealousy and irritation. Before I could even sit down, my mother whispered sharply, "Scarlett, where on earth did you get that dress? Did you max out a fraudulent credit card? And who is this person you brought with you?" she sneered, looking at Ethan. "This is Ethan, my fiancé," I said calmly, taking my seat. My dad chimed in, immediately trying to control the narrative in front of the billionaire Harrison Vance. Mr. Vance, please ignore my daughter. She's been going through a bit of a psychological rough patch. Lost her simple desk job recently and has been drifting. But our son Julian here, as I was saying, Julian's business acumen is truly the pride of our family lineage." Julian puffed out his chest, looking incredibly smug, while Audrey looked down her nose at me. I didn't say a single word. I just smiled, politely cut my steak, and listened to them dig their own graves. Toward the end of the dinner, Harrison Vance sighed, rubbing his temples in frustration. "It's an absolute nightmare trying to secure premium real estate on this coast. I've been trying to book the famous Malibu Zenith Horizon mansion for our global corporate summer gala. I offered the owner's legal team $60,000 for a mere 48-hour rental, and they rejected my corporate check within 5 minutes. The owner is an absolute ghost, total old money power. They don't care about cash." My dad's eyes practically turned into dollar signs. "Oh, the Zenith Horizon. Harrison, I have been studying that architectural masterpiece for 5 years. The owner must be an international billionaire. I've tried to get a broker viewing there dozens of times, but security won't even let you pass the main highway gate." I elegantly wiped my mouth with a silk napkin, set it down on the table, and looked directly at Harrison Vance. Actually, Mr. Vance, the weather is incredibly clear tonight. Why don't we all skip the restaurant dessert and head over to the Zenith Horizon for premium drinks? I happen to know the owner exceptionally well, and I can guarantee you a full private tour. The entire table went dead silent. My mother's face turned bright red with embarrassment. She leaned over, her voice a venomous whisper. "Scarlett, shut your mouth right now. How dare you lie to a man of Mr. Vance's stature? You are a jobless, broke girl living on handouts. You don't know anyone in Malibu. Stop humiliating us." But Harrison Vance was highly intrigued. "Is that so, Scarlett? Well, my schedule is open. Let's see it." 10 minutes later, a convoy of luxury vehicles was driving down the Pacific Coast Highway. My parents and Julian were in their leased Mercedes, trailing closely behind Ethan's powerful truck, undoubtedly furious and convinced I was about to get them arrested for trespassing. We pulled up to the massive, imposing iron security gates of the Zenith Horizon. The mansion was glowing against the dark backdrop of the Pacific Ocean, looking like a multi-million-dollar diamond. My dad scrambled out of his car, sweat pouring down his face. "Scarlett, stop this madness right now. This is highly restricted private property. If the security team calls the Malibu police, Julian's reputation with the Vance family will be completely ruined." I calmly walked up to the high-tech, biometric security scanner at the main gate. The laser scanned my retinas and my palm. Instantly, the heavy iron gates began to silently roll back, and a crisp, polite automated AI voice echoed over the intercom. "Welcome home, Miss Bass. Climate control has been set to your preferred 72 degrees. My mother's jaw literally dropped so low I thought it would unhinge. My father looked as if he had just seen a ghost. Julian's face went completely pale. We walked through the grand entrance. The interior lighting illuminated the vast, high-ceilinged marble spaces. Ethan walked smoothly behind the custom onyx wet bar, pulling out a bottle of premium, limited edition champagne, and began pouring glasses for Harrison Vance and his executives. My father was trembling, his hands shaking as he looked around the room, staring at the exact framed architecture he had worshipped for years. "Scarlett, I don't understand. Whose house is this? What multimillionaire did you trick into letting you stay here?" Ethan stepped forward, standing tall beside me, smoothly placing his arm around my waist. He looked my father dead in the eyes, his voice cutting through the room like a razor blade. "Nobody lent her this house, Mr. Davis. Scarlett bought this mansion outright, cash down, exactly 3 months ago. She is the founder and sole CEO of an international logistics software enterprise. In fact, she paid for 100% of this property. I'm just the incredibly lucky architect who gets to live here with the brilliant woman you threw out into the rain like garbage because she lost a petty $85,000 job." The silence in the room was absolute. You could hear a pin drop on the marble floor. Harrison Vance turned around, staring at my parents with an expression of absolute, unadulterated disgust. "Charles, Victoria, you told me your daughter was a broke, incompetent failure who was a stain on your family name. She owns the most exclusive, high-value piece of tech-driven real estate on the entire Southern California coastline. Your entire family narrative is a complete farce." My mother's face transformed instantly. The cold, aristocratic mask slipped off, replaced by a grotesque, desperate smile. She rushed toward me, trying to grab my hands, her voice dripping with fake, maternal sweetness. "Oh, Scarlett, my beautiful, brilliant darling. We always knew you had greatness inside you. That night in the rain, oh, you must understand, it was just tough love. We wanted to push you out of your comfort zone so you could achieve your true potential. Look at this place. It has 6 massive master suites, right? Your father's consulting firm has been having a little bit of trouble lately, and we've been looking to downsize our main house. We can move into the East Wing and help you manage this massive property. We're family after all." I stepped back, pulling my hands away from her grip. I looked at her, then at my father, and finally at my silent, humiliated brother. You didn't give me tough love, Victoria. You showed me that your love has a strict monthly subscription fee. When I was at my lowest, you packed my life into trash bags and locked me out in a storm because I was no longer a profitable asset to you. You didn't want a daughter. You wanted a paycheck to fund Julian's fake lifestyle. Well, now I have a real partner, a real empire, and absolutely zero space in my life for parasites. I looked over at Harrison Vance. Mr. Vance, you are welcome to host your corporate gala here this summer, completely free of charge, under one condition. My brother Julian is permanently removed from your firm's accounts. Harrison Vance smiled coldly, nodding his head. Consider it done, Scarlett. It's a pleasure doing business with a true professional. I looked back at my trembling parents. Now get out of my house. If my private security team catches your vehicle on this private road again, you will be arrested for criminal trespassing. Ethan calmly walked to the massive front door, opening it wide, and gestured for them to leave. My parents and Julian walked out into the dark Malibu night, looking utterly defeated, small, and completely broken. It has been several months since that night, Reddit. The updates are incredibly satisfying. Harrison Vance completely cut ties with my brother Julian, firing him the very next morning. Once Audrey realized that Julian was a broke, lazy fraud whose family was toxic, she filed for divorce, taking absolutely everything in the prenuptial agreement. My dad's boutique consulting firm finally went completely bankrupt last month, and their suburban house is currently facing bank foreclosure. They have sent me dozens of letters, emails, and desperate voicemails begging for financial salvation, claiming they are going to end up on the street. I haven't replied to a single one. I blocked them all over again. Last night, Ethan and I sat out on our heated infinity deck, drinking wine, listening to the ocean waves, and finalizing our wedding guest list, which consists only of people who loved us when we had absolutely nothing. Karma doesn't just catch up, it builds a mansion next door and watches you fail. Am I the asshole for letting them lose everything?